I bought the house because it was cheap, and now I understand exactly why. The listing mentioned nothing unusual. A modest 3-bedroom home on the edge of a small town, priced well below market value. The agent explaining it away as an estate sale that needed to close quickly. I didn't ask enough questions. I should have. The first sign something was wrong came during my second week, when I noticed the crawl space access panel in the hallway closet didn't sit quite flush with the floor, as though something had shifted it slightly from beneath at some point before I moved in. I told myself it was just old, settled construction. Houses shift, panels warp. I didn't think about it again for almost a month. It was the scratching that changed that. I heard it first around 2 a.m., a slow, deliberate dragging sound coming from beneath the floorboards of the hallway, moving steadily from one end of the house toward the other, pausing occasionally, as though whatever was making the sound was listening as carefully as I was. I told myself it was raccoons, possums, something explainable, something that belonged in the category of ordinary household pest problems rather than anything worth losing sleep over. I called an exterminator the next morning. He inspected the crawl space access, the exterior foundation, every visible entry point around the house, and found absolutely nothing. No droppings, no nesting material, no evidence of any animal ever having been inside the crawl space at all. He told me, somewhat apologetically, that whatever I'd heard had likely been the house settling, or perhaps sound traveling strangely through old pipes. The scratching continued anyway, every night, always around 2 a.m., always following that same slow path from one end of the house to the other. By the third week, the sounds had changed. The dragging became something closer to shifting, deliberate weight moving beneath specific floorboards, occasionally directly beneath wherever I happened to be standing at that exact moment, as though it were tracking my position through the house in real time. I stopped sleeping properly. I started staying awake most nights, listening, cataloging the sounds, trying to convince myself I wasn't imagining the increasingly obvious sense that whatever was down there knew exactly where I was at all times. One night, unable to take the uncertainty any longer, I opened the crawl space access panel myself, flashlight in hand, kneeling at the edge of the opening and shining the beam into the darkness below. I saw nothing, just old support beams, insulation, dirt, and shadow stretching into the crawl space's full length beneath the house. No droppings, no nest, nothing that would explain the sounds I'd been hearing for weeks. I almost convinced myself, in that moment, that I really had been imagining things. Then, at the very edge of my flashlight's reach, near the far corner of the crawl space, something moved. Not an animal's scurry, not the quick, small motion of a rodent startled by light. Something large shifted its weight, slowly, deliberately, retreating just slightly further into the deepest shadow at the edge of my flashlight's reach, as though it had been sitting perfectly still, watching me, right up until the moment I finally looked directly at it. I closed the panel immediately. I didn't sleep at all that night. The following morning, I called a different exterminator, a specialist this time, someone with decades of experience dealing with larger wildlife intrusions. He inspected the crawl space thoroughly, spending nearly 2 hours beneath the house with proper equipment and lighting. He came up looking genuinely unsettled, which worried me more than almost anything else that had happened so far. He told me he'd found something in the deepest corner of the crawl space that he couldn't immediately identify. A series of what appeared to be claw marks dug deep into one of the support beams, spaced in a pattern too wide and too deliberate to match any wildlife common to the region. He recommended I contact animal control, or possibly a wildlife biologist, someone with more specialized knowledge than his own. I didn't call anyone. I started sleeping at a hotel instead, telling myself I would deal with the house properly once I'd had time to think clearly about my options. I went back one final time during the day, specifically to retrieve some belongings I needed, telling myself the daylight would make everything feel less overwhelming than it had at 2 a.m. in an empty house. The scratching started the moment I stepped through the front door, despite it being early afternoon, despite every previous incident occurring exclusively at night. I stood frozen in the hallway, listening as the sound moved directly beneath my feet, tracking my exact position as I shifted my weight instinctively backward toward the door. Then, directly ahead of me, the crawl space access panel in the hallway closet slowly began to lift from beneath, as though something below were deliberately, patiently pushing it open from the other side. I should have run immediately. Some frozen, disbelieving part of my mind needed to see, needed confirmation of what I already understood was about to happen. The panel lifted fully open. What emerged from that opening moved wrong in a way I still struggle to fully describe. Even now, it was large, far larger than the narrow crawl space opening should have reasonably allowed, folding and unfolding itself through the gap in a manner that defied the basic physical dimensions of the space it was emerging from. Limbs bending at angles that didn't correspond to anything I recognized as a joint or a natural point of articulation. Its skin, if it could be called skin, was the same dull gray-brown as the crawl space dirt itself. As though it had spent years, perhaps decades, becoming a part of the very darkness beneath the house, rather than simply hiding within it. It didn't make a sound as it fully emerged into the hallway, rising to a height that shouldn't have been physically possible given the crawl space's shallow clearance. Its head, if that word even applied to whatever sat atop its elongated frame, tilting toward me with a slow, deliberate curiosity that felt far more calculated than any animal's instinctive reaction to an intruder. I ran. I don't remember reaching my car. I don't remember the drive away from that house. Only the distinct, certain knowledge that whatever I'd seen had been waiting patiently beneath that floor for far longer than I had lived there, and that it had chosen that exact moment, deliberately, to finally let itself be seen. I never went back for my belongings. I sold the house within the month, at a significant loss, to a buyer I never spoke with directly, through an agent who asked no questions about my reasons for the rushed sale, and who I suspect already understood, on some level, exactly why I was leaving without ever setting foot inside again. I don't know what lies beneath that house now. I don't know if it ever truly leaves, or if it simply waits, patient and unseen, for whoever eventually replaces the next owner who spends too many nights listening to sounds they'd rather explain away as something ordinary. If you're ever offered a house priced well below what it should be worth, with an owner in a hurry to close the sale, I'd think carefully about what exactly you might be inheriting along with the deed. Some things that live beneath old houses have been waiting a very long time for someone new to notice them.